Me llamo y ¿cómo te llamas? Are perfectly acceptable ways of saying your name and asking the name of the other person. But wouldn't it be nice to add some variety to it? Let's have a look at 4 alternatives Spanish-speaking natives love to use as well. Mi nombre es Maura. I'm a spring Spanish teacher, and here is alternative número 1. Mi nombre es. Hola, mi nombre es Claudia. Mucho gusto. Hola, Claudia. Mi nombre es Paula. El placer es mío. So, saying mi nombre es is your first alternative for me llamo because it would be the most common thing to substitute it with, especialmente en Latinoamérica. In most scenarios, we would only say the name, but in formal situations, we might add our last name as well. Hola, mi nombre es Claudia Izaguirre. Mucho gusto. Por cierto, stick with me till the end if you want to know what to say in case you're one of those cool people with a nickname most people use instead of your actual name. Número 2. Soy. Hola, soy Amanda. Encantada. Hola, Amanda. Igualmente, soy Carla. Notice how I'm adding things like mucho gusto and encantada right after? This way, the presentation sounds organic and, well, whole. De lo contrario, podríamos parecer secos o inaccesibles. But hey, sometimes that's exactly what we want, so keep it in mind if that's the case. For more presentation tips, make sure to check out Juan's video on the subject. He makes a hilarious joke about the word soy. Chunk alert! Encantada is a chunk you can use instead of mucho gusto when introducing yourself to another person. Use encantado for masculine. Es muy común en Venezuela, especialmente para las mujeres. I know my mom has always said this, and I just felt very grown up and classic by saying it. I guess it's also because it sounds familiar to the enchanté from French. There are many more everyday chunks you can start using right now if you click on that link in the description and access our free Essential Spanish Chunking Kit. Of course, you could also use this soy and any other alternative for that matter to say your apellido if the context calls for it. Hola, soy Amanda Barradas. Encantada. Hola, Amanda. Igualmente, soy Carla Betancourt. Soy isn't very common for me as a Venezuelan. As a matter of fact, when I first came to Spain, I noticed that most people here would use it to introduce themselves, and it felt totally new for me. That being said, it is perfectly understandable and a very good choice if you want to keep it short. Pero resulta que hay una alternativa aún más corta. Número 3. Just say your name. Hola, Samantha. Un placer. Irene, el placer es mío. Maybe this would be the trickiest of the 3 because it does require some precise timing and rhythm. Ahora, esta alternativa sí es muy común para mí como latinoamericana. Far more than soy. Pero hablemos un poco de ese ritmo. Of course, the other person knows their name, so it shouldn't be as confusing, but make sure to make a little pause between greeting them and saying your name. Like, hola, Samantha, mucho gusto. Do you notice how the name sounds separate from everything else? It does feel different than saying, hola, Samantha, mucho gusto. Saying it like this in one breath might make it sound as if you're saying hello to a Samantha. In other words, the other person might hear it and feel like you think their name is Samantha. Este es mi favorito, realmente. I don't think I use any of the other alternatives more than this one, and I do happen to like it more. It feels cooler for me, for some reason. Número 4. Me llaman. Here's that chunk you can use if you have a nickname you'd rather them using instead of your actual name. Hola, mi nombre es Adriana, pero me llaman Chichi. Chichi, qué buen sobrenombre! Saying me llaman can let them know your actual name, which is always a good idea, but making sure they know most people around you won't use that to refer to you. De hecho, tengo un par de amigos, I grew up with who only used their nickname, and most people had no idea who I was talking about when I called them by their name. If you happen to have a nickname, why don't you let me know in the comments? Me encantaría leerlos. Recap. Now, let's go over your alternatives to me llamo once more, so you can pick out your favorite and use it to let me know cuál es tu nombre in the comments. So, you can say, mi nombre es Maura. Soy Maura. Maura. Remember, the last one only requires you to separate your name from everything else you're saying. Also, that you can add your apellido anytime you see it fit with any of these alternatives. Mi nombre es Maura, pero me llaman Mau. Here you can use any of the previous alternatives to say your name, but do use me llaman to introduce your nickname. En mi caso, few people really call me Mau, but I did use M as a nickname while living in Boston because I couldn't get used to people pronouncing Maura as Mora.
Mara.
What's next once your conversation partners said their name? Easy. You tell them mucho gusto. Or you use one of the 4 alternatives to mucho gusto that Paulísima has prepared for you here.